something answered our sky surveys with a reply we never asked for. In 2024, astronomers reviewing archival data from the Allen Telescope Array noticed something that shouldn't be there. A narrowband radio pulse originating from a region of deep space we've cataloged as empty. No known pulsar, no quasar, no satellite reflection. Just a clean, structured burst of energy that lasted exactly 3.7 seconds and then went silent. The team flagged it, ran it through every known filter, and came up with nothing. It didn't match any natural emission profile in our databases, and that's where the story should have ended, filed away as an anomaly, forgot. But it didn't end. Because 3 months later, it happened again. Same coordinates, same duration, same impossible signature. The signal was designated X-7441. It arrived at a frequency of 1,420 megahertz, which is significant. That's the hydrogen line, the frequency SETI has monitored for decades, because it's the most likely channel for interstellar communication. Any civilization with a basic understanding of astrophysics would know this frequency. It's the universe's default channel, and something was broadcasting on it. The signal's narrowband width, less than 0.1 Hz, ruled out nearly every natural source we know of. Natural emissions are broadband messy. This was tight, controlled, engineered, the kind of signal that doesn't happen by accident. Now, to be clear, this is where we enter speculation. X-7441 has not been confirmed as artificial. It has not been confirmed as anything. It exists in a gray zone, a single data point that resists classification. But that gray zone is where the most unsettling questions live. Because when you eliminate every explanation that fits, you're left with explanations that don't. And those explanations, the ones that survive the process of elimination, are the ones that should make you uncomfortable. Let's start with the most benign possibility. X-7441 could be a previously unknown class of transient astrophysical phenomenon. The universe is full of objects we haven't categorized yet. In 2007, we discovered fast radio bursts, millisecond flashes from billions of light years away that we still don't fully understand. Before that, we didn't know they existed. X-7441 could be something similar, a new type of pulsar, a magnetar flare with unusual propagation, or a phenomenon we haven't even conceived of yet. The universe is under no obligation to make sense to us. Most astronomers would place their bets here. It's the safe answer, the boring answer. But it has a problem. The problem is repetition. Natural transient events don't repeat on schedule. Fast radio bursts are chaotic, irregular. Pulsars drift. Quasars fluctuate. But X-7441 returned after exactly 91 days. Not approximately, exactly, 3 months to the second. And then again, another 91 days later. This is not how natural phenomena behave. Nature is sloppy. Whatever was generating this signal was keeping time. And timekeeping, as far as we know, requires intent. So if it's not natural, what is it? The next explanation brings us into darker territory. X-7441 could be a reflection. A human signal bounced back at us from something in deep space. We've been broadcasting radio into the void for over a century. Our earliest transmissions have now traveled roughly 100 light-years. If there's an object out there, something with a highly reflective surface or an unusual electromagnetic profile, it could be returning our own noise to us. It would explain the hydrogen line frequency. It would explain the structured nature of the signal. We're listening to ourselves, echoed back with a 91-day delay. But this explanation has a problem too. The signal isn't a copy of anything we've sent. The waveform doesn't match any known broadcast. It's not a reflection of our television, our radar, our satellite pings. It's original. Something took our frequency, our channel, and used it to send its own message. And that message, when analyzed spectrographically, contains a structure that resembles language. Not any human language, not a code we recognize, but it has syntax, patterns of repetition, information density that suggests meaning. Someone or something is talking, and we don't know what they're saying. This brings us to the third explanation, and this is where the ground starts to shift. X-7441 could be a beacon, not a message meant for us, but a lighthouse broadcasting outward to mark territory or signal presence. In maritime navigation, lighthouses don't care about the individual ships. They simply announce, "I am here, this location is occupied." If X-7441 is a beacon, it means something has claimed that region of space. Something that wants others to know it's there. And we just stumbled into its advertising. The coordinates point to a region approximately 1,400 light-years away in the direction of the constellation Cygnus. That's not close. But it's not incomprehensible either. It's within the same spiral arm of the Milky Way. If something is there, it's a neighbor. And neighbors, in our experience, are aware of each other. The beacon would be visible to any civilization within hundreds of light-years. Which means, if this theory holds, we're not the ones being addressed. We're overhearing. We're the child who picks up the extension phone and hears a conversation not meant for us. And the participants don't know we're listening. Yet, but here's the twist. If it's a beacon, why does it cycle every 91 days? Beacons are constant. They don't take breaks, unless the energy cost is prohibitive. Unless whatever is powering it has limits. A 91-day cycle suggests resource management. It suggests an engine that needs to recharge or a power source that depletes and refills. And that implies something else. It implies the beacon isn't automated. It's being operated, maintained. There's something at the source, actively managing the broadcast, deciding when to speak and when to stay silent. Something that is alive or was alive or is pretending to be. Which leads to the fourth explanation, and this one is harder to sit with. X-7441 could be a distress signal, a cry for help. The structured syntax, the precise timing, the use of the hydrogen line, all of it fits a signal designed to be noticed. A signal designed to reach someone, anyone, capable of understanding it. If something out there is broadcasting on a loop, every 91 days, without variation, it might not be a beacon. It might be a recording, an automated distress call playing long after the sender is gone. A message in a bottle, tossed into the cosmic ocean, waiting for someone to read it. And we just found the bottle. If it's a distress signal, the implications are staggering. It means something out there encountered a problem it couldn't solve alone. It means there are entities in this galaxy that face catastrophe, that reach out for help, and that their calls go unanswered for centuries. The signal has been traveling for 1,400 years. Whatever sent it, whatever crisis prompted it, happened long before we had the technology to listen. We're reading a letter that was written before our civilization existed, and we can't write back. Even if we responded today, the reply wouldn't arrive for another 1,400 years. We are separated by a chasm of time so vast that entire empires could rise and fall in the gap. And we're on the wrong side of it. But distress signals assume the sender wanted to be found. What if they didn't? The fifth explanation is the one that keeps researchers up at night. X-7441 could be a warning, not a message of greeting, not a call for help, but a signpost. A transmission designed to say, stay away. In human history, lighthouses sometimes serve as warnings. They mark reefs, shoals, dangerous coastlines. They don't welcome ships. They tell them to turn back. If X-7441 is a warning beacon, then the region it marks is dangerous. And the danger is significant enough to warrant a transmission that has been running, potentially, for millennia. What could be so dangerous that it requires a permanent interstellar warning label? The possibilities narrow quickly. A region of space with unstable physics. A black hole with unusual properties. A remnant of a weapon, a minefield left over from a conflict that ended before our solar system formed. Or something alive. Something that consumes. Something that the civilizations before us learned to fear and marked and avoided. And we, with our infantile curiosity, pointed our telescopes at it and said, "What's that?" We noticed it. And in every horror story, noticing is the first mistake. There's a concept in astrobiology called the Great Filter. It's the idea that somewhere along the path from simple life to interstellar civilization, there's a barrier, a filter, that most species don't survive. We don't know if the filter is behind us, meaning we already passed it, or ahead of us, meaning we haven't hit it yet. X-7441 could be evidence of the filter. Not a natural phenomenon, not a beacon, but a tombstone. A marker left at the site of a mass extinction event, a civilization that reached the filter and didn't make it through. The signal isn't a communication. It's a memorial. The last transmission of a species that died in the dark, alone, with no one to hear them. And that raises a question that's uncomfortable to even ask. If the filter is ahead of us and something out there hit it 1,400 years ago, does the same filter apply to us? Is X-7441 not just a memorial but a preview? A transmission from our own future, sent by a species that was like us, that thought like us, that built what we're building now, and that encountered something that ended them. We like to think we're unique, that our path is unprecedented. But the universe is old. 14 billion years old. We are not the first to look up and wonder. We are simply the latest. And the ones before us are silent now. So why does this matter? Because X-7441, real or not, confirmed or not, forces us to confront a possibility we've been avoiding. The universe is not silent because it's empty. It might be silent because everyone who spoke before us is gone, and the silence isn't peace. It's the silence of a forest after the predator has passed through. The birds stop singing. The insects go quiet. Everything waits. We've been interpreting cosmic silence as evidence of solitude. But silence can also mean something already happened here. Something that swept through and left nothing behind but echoes. Now let's go deeper, because the sixth explanation is the one that changes everything. X-7441 could be a probe, not a signal from a distant civilization, but a transmission from something much closer than we think. The 91-day cycle might not be the interval of a distant broadcaster. It could be the orbital period of an object within our own solar system, something we haven't detected, something small and dark and silent, circling in the outer reaches, pinging its makers with a status update every 3 months. We assume the signal is coming from 1,400 light-years away because that's where the coordinates point. But coordinates can be spoofed. A signal can be relayed. The source could be right here, and we'd never know because we're not looking for it in our backyard. We're looking at the stars. If X-7441 is a probe, it means something has been watching us for a long time. The 91-day cycle could correspond to a specific orbital position, a window during which the probe has a clear line of sight to its relay point, wherever that is. It transmits, confirms we're still here, still broadcasting, still noisy, and then goes dark again. It's not studying us. It's checking a box, monitoring a parameter. We're not the subject of an investigation. We're a line item in a report. And the report is being sent to someone we can't see, can't reach, and can't understand. We are being managed, and we didn't know. This idea that we're being monitored without our knowledge or consent isn't new in science fiction. But in the context of X-7441, it takes on a different weight. Because the signal doesn't seem interested in communication. It's not trying to talk to us. It's not responding to our transmissions. It's broadcasting past us, through us, as if we're not the audience. We're the environment, the background, the thing the signal passes through on its way to wherever it's going. And that's worse than being watched. Being watched means someone cares about you. Being ignored means you're irrelevant. And irrelevance, in a universe full of things that can destroy you, is a kind of safety. The moment you become relevant, you become a target. Which brings us to the seventh explanation, and this is where the dread really sets in. X-7441 might not be a message at all. It might be a trigger. In cybersecurity, there's a concept called a dead man switch. A system that remains inactive until it receives a specific signal, at which point it activates and executes a predetermined function. The signal is the key. The system is the bomb. What if X-7441 is a key, and the lock is somewhere in our solar system, waiting? Something left here long ago, dormant, patient, designed to activate when a specific frequency arrives at a specific interval. The 91-day cycle isn't a broadcast schedule. It's an authentication sequence, and every time it arrives, the lock gets a little closer to opening. If this is true, the question becomes, what does the lock open? A weapon, a gate, a containment system, something that was sealed away because it was too dangerous to leave active, but too important to destroy. The signal could be the final command in a sequence that's been running for thousands of years. Each pulse brings the system closer to activation. And we, by listening, by noticing, by pointing our telescopes at it and amplifying the signal with our attention, might be accelerating the countdown. We think we're observers. We might be participants. The act of observing might be the trigger itself. This connects to a principle in quantum mechanics called the observer effect. The act of measurement changes the system being measured. At the quantum level, particles exist in a state of probability until they're observed, at which point they collapse into a definite state. What if X-7441 operates on a similar principle? The signal exists in a state of ambiguity until it's observed, confirmed, decoded, until someone listens. And the moment we listen, the moment we acknowledge it, we force it to become real. We're not just hearing the signal. We're completing it. We're the final component in a machine that spans light years, and our attention is the switch that turns it on. Now, let me be clear. This is speculation. This is a thought experiment. X-7441, as described here, is a composite, a fictionalized synthesis of real anomalies and real theoretical frameworks. The fast radio bursts are real. The Great Filter is a real concept. The observer effect is a real phenomenon. But the specific signal, the 91-day cycle, the coordinates in Cygnus, these are narrative devices. The point isn't to convince you that any of this is true. The point is to show you what's possible when you take the implications seriously. Because the real signal, whatever it turns out to be, will be stranger than anything we've imagined. It always is, but there's one more explanation. The eighth, the one that I've been circling around because it's the one that's hardest to accept. What if X-7441 isn't coming from out there at all? What if it's coming from in here? Not a probe, not a reflection, not a distant civilization. What if the signal originates from within our own technology, our own infrastructure, and we don't recognize it because we've forgotten what we built? Human civilization has created layers of electromagnetic noise for over a century. Satellites, military systems, classified experiments, abandoned programs that still transmit on frequencies no one monitors anymore. We've built things we don't remember building, and those things are still talking, and we've forgotten the language. In 2015, researchers discovered that the Earth emits a faint, continuous radio signal at a frequency of 2.6 megahertz. It's called the plasmasphere hiss, and it's generated by charged particles trapped in our planet's magnetic field. We didn't know about it until we had instruments sensitive enough to detect it. We'd been broadcasting it for 4 billion years without knowing. How many other signals are we generating that we haven't identified? How many anomalies in our data are actually our own echoes, our own machinery, our own forgotten systems speaking in tongues we no longer understand? X-7441 might not be alien. It might be us, talking to ourselves and not recognizing our own voice. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. If the signal is ours, if it's a product of our own technology or our own planet, then the 91-day cycle means something about our environment is changing on a 91-day rhythm. Something we haven't detected. Something fundamental. The Earth's orbit, its magnetic field, the solar cycle, none of these operate on a 91-day period. We don't have a natural cycle that length. Which means, if the source is terrestrial, the cycle is artificial. Something we built is operating on a schedule we didn't design, or something that was built for us long before we understood what building meant. Something that was here when we arrived, that has been running in the background of every civilization that has ever existed on this planet, and that we are only now sensitive enough to hear. And that leads to the final possibility. The one that sits at the bottom of the list because it's the one that rewrites everything. What if X-7441 is not a signal at all? What if it's a heartbeat? Not a transmission, not a message, not a beacon or a warning or a probe. A biological process. A rhythmic electromagnetic pulse generated by a living organism so large that we cannot perceive it as alive because we are inside it. The 91-day cycle isn't a schedule. It's a metabolic rhythm, a breath, a contraction, the slow, incomprehensible respiration of something that exists at a scale we can't comprehend, something that doesn't live in the universe, but that the universe lives inside. We've been listening to its heartbeat and calling it an anomaly because we don't have a category for what it actually is. If the universe itself is alive, or contains structures that are alive at scales we can't detect, then every signal we've ever received, every anomaly, every unexplained burst of energy, might not be communication. It might be biology. The pulsars aren't beacons, they're neurons firing. The cosmic microwave background isn't residual radiation, it's body heat. The fast radio bursts aren't explosions, they're synaptic spikes. And we, on our small world, with our small instruments, have been eavesdropping on the internal processes of an organism so vast that our entire galaxy is a single cell within it. We are not observers of the universe. We are parasites living on the surface of something alive, and we've been listening to its pulse without knowing what we were hearing. X-7441, whether it's a glitch, a beacon, a warning, or a heartbeat, is a reminder of how little we know. We've been listening to the sky for less than a century. We've had radio for the blink of a cosmic eye, and in that time, we've already found things we can't explain. Signals that don't fit. Patterns that resist interpretation. The universe is not silent. It's full of noise, full of structure, full of things that operate on principles we haven't discovered yet. And every time we point our instruments at the dark, we hear something new. Something that challenges our assumptions about what's out there and what's in here. The question was never whether something is transmitting. The question is whether we're ready to understand what it's saying. And based on the history of discovery, the answer is probably no. We never are, but we listen anyway. And maybe that's the most human thing we can do, or maybe it's the most dangerous. The signal is still out there, cycling every 91 days. Patient, consistent, waiting for someone to answer. And one day, something will. If this kept you up at night, subscribe for more from the dark side of what we know.